A very good evening to you all, my colleagues, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Miss Young, and for the past 2 years, I've been Prep H teacher here at our school. I am here to talk to you about something that I care about deeply and something I'm very passionate about. I'm going to talk about why it's time for us to close our segregated education unit and embrace full inclusion. Inclusion is not an option, it is a right. And as teachers, we have both the professional responsibility and the moral commitment to ensure that every child in our care has access to meaningful and equitable learning. Tonight, I want to share with you the case for change and why closing the unit is not only consistent with Australia's laws and policy, but it's also the best path moving forward for our students, family, and our school community. This year, we welcome a new family into our school. Aliana in grade 3 and twins, Giorgio and Luca in prep. Luca has been diagnosed with low vision and ADHD. His parents and kindergarten teacher were shocked to learn that he would not be placed alongside his twin, but instead in a segregated unit. The decision immediately raised questions about our values, responsibilities, and the obligations under Australian law. As I said before, inclusive education is not optional. It is a legal, ethical, and pedagogical duty. Luca deserves to begin prep with his brother, which will build his identity, his confidence, and encourage his learning alongside his peers. Placing Luca in a segregated unit is a form of offering. It marks him as different from his twin and his peers. This reinforces the idea that he does not belong in our mainstream classroom, which is a form of ableism. As teachers, we must reflect deficit views of disabilities and embrace the social model, which tells us that it is not the impairment itself that excludes children, it's the barriers in the environment. When we design classrooms that are flexible, responsive, and equitable, students like Luca are able to thrive on the same basis as his peers. I believe we can't truly understand inclusive education without looking where we've come from. Inclusive education in Australia has come a long way. Historically, students with disabilities were excluded altogether, and over time, we then shifted to segregated units, then to integration where students were physically present but not fully included. Today, alongside Australia's commitment to inclusive education, our focus is on true inclusion. The international and national frameworks mark this evaluation. The Salmeka Statement, the Disability Discrimination Act, and the Disability Standards for Education together push us towards a system where every child is welcome and supported in the mainstream classing. Australia has made very clear commitments to inclusive education. The Disability Discrimination Act makes it unlawful to deny enrolment based on disability. The Disability Standards for Education go further, requiring us to provide access and participation on the same basis as peers. The Alice Springs Declaration highlights our national duty to pursue both excellence and equity. Most recently, the Disability Royal Commission recommended that segregated settings be phased out altogether. The direction is clear. Inclusion is the standard that we must work towards. So, why should we close the unit? Let's break it down. My first reasoning is because segregation is a breach of rights. Article 24 of the United Nations Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disability guarantees every child the right to inclusive education. Second, refusing Luca his place in prep is a form of gatekeeping, which is unlawful under the Disability Discrimination Act 1992. My third reason is segregated units reinforce ableism. They frame disabilities as a problem within the child instead of looking at the strengths, potentials, and support. My final reason for now is the social model of disability reminds us that exclusion is created by barriers, rigid structures, inaccessible materials, and attitudes, not by Luca's impairments. Something I am passionate about as a prep teacher is the transitions from kinder. Transitions are critical for young children. The Declaration of Alice Springs reminds us that continuity of relationships builds security, confidence, and well-being. Luca has always learned alongside his twin Giorgio. This was confirmed by their kinder teacher. To separate them now undermines his sense of identity and belonging and makes their transition to school harder for both of them. Instead, placing the twins together allows us to build on their strong sibling bond that supports both their learning and development. Continuity from kindergarten to school is essential for both these children to thrive. Something I am passionate about as a prep teacher is the transitions from kinder. Transitions are critical for young children. The Declaration of Alice Springs reminds us that continuity of relationships builds security, confidence, and well-being. Luca has always learned alongside his twin Giorgio. This was confirmed by their kinder teacher. To separate them now undermines his sense of identity and belonging and makes their transition to school harder for both of them. Instead, placing the twins together allows us to build on their strong sibling bond that supports both their learning and development. Continuity from kindergarten to school is essential for both these children to thrive. Segregated schooling is way out of with legal and policy frameworks. It conflicts with the Disability Discrimination Act, the Disability Standards for Education, the Alice Springs Declaration, and the recent findings of the Royal Commission. We cannot claim to uphold these commitments while still maintaining separate units. Closing the unit is the only way we can align our practice with our obligation. The benefits of inclusion are clear. For Luca, it means belonging, confidence, friendships, and access to the curriculum. For his peers, inclusion builds empathy, respect for diversity, and collaborative learning skills that will serve them for life. For our wider school community, inclusive schooling promotes equity, strengthens families and school partnerships, and fosters inclusive values that will extend into future workplaces and social relationships. Through differentiation and the universal design for learning, I believe that we can create a flexible pathway that supports all students. For example, for Luca, I believe a simple adjustment will make a world of difference. Structured routines, visual supports, and flexible grouping are some of the ways. Most importantly, we will be building on his strengths, his creativity, and his close bond with his brother. After speaking with Luca's parents, it is clear that Luca will benefit from structured routines and a visual schedule that will reduce his cognitive load. I will be breaking instructions into small and manageable steps to help him stay on track. In conjunction with my LSOs, we will also be providing movement breaks and fidget toys to support his self-regulation. Positive reinforcement will be framed as our main basis. We want to keep Luca in our classroom motivated and confident. We are very grateful that there are so many wonderful resources about students with low vision. For low vision, some evidence-based strategies include providing materials in an accessible format, for example, large printing, tactile resources, or a high contrast visual. A consistent classroom layout which reduces mobility barriers with good lighting will help. Assistive technologies such as magnifying or tablets can help access to the text and visuals. Inclusive education affects all stakeholders. For Luca and Giorgio, it means confidence, belonging, and a chance to learn together. For their parents, it means collaboration, trust, and a genuine sense that their voices matter. For his peers, it means learning empathy and respect. For us, it is an opportunity to grow in our practice in differentiation and inclusive design. For the leaders of the school, I ask you to allocate resources and build a true inclusive school culture. We're going to work together with our community about equity, participation, and fostering inclusive values that will last beyond school years. At the heart of inclusive education is the phrase "on the same basis." Luca deserves the same opportunity and the same choices and the same experiences as every other student in prep. This does not mean identical treatment, it means equitable treatment. And by making reasonable adjustments and embracing an inclusive design, I believe that we can ensure every child is truly learning on the same basis as their peers. Closing the unit is the only way we can align with our legal, ethical, and professional commitments. Luca belongs in Prep H with Giorgio and his peers. By embracing inclusion, we do not only support Luca, we support every child. We show that belonging, equity, and participation are at the heart of our school values. Before I finish, I would like to invite you all to take one small step. I'd like you to just think about one small action you can take this week to ensure that every child in your classroom feels they belong on the same basis as their peers. Closing the unit isn't the end, it's the beginning of a stronger, more connected, and a more equitable school community. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.